Matching outfits, extravagant birthdays, many nicknames, few classic moves of a dog-obsessed parent. And at Ollie, they're obsessed with how obsessed you are with your pup, which is why they obsess over giving your dog the best. Ollie's fresh human-grade recipes are developed by real chefs and backed by vet nutritionists. The meals are perfectly proportioned and come with a pup-tainer and a scoop for easy storing and mess-free serving, delivering the best experience for you and your pup. And through the Ollie app, you can actually check in on your dog's health with real vets. By uploading a picture, their team can check your dog's weight, digestion, teeth, and coat. They'll then provide next steps on how to keep them thriving. And because they're just as obsessed as you are, there's zero judgment if you check in every day. You could say Ollie feeds the obsession. Go to ollie.com/truecrime and use the code TRUECRIME to get 60% off your welcome kit. Ollie, feed the obsession.
Support for this podcast comes from Progressive, America's #1 motorcycle insurer. Did you know riders who switch and save with Progressive save nearly $180 per year? That's a whole new pair of riding gloves and more. Quote today. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $178 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between October 2022 and September 2023. Potential savings will vary.
Prosecutor Jared Horowitz stood before a judge in November 2025 and told her about Justin and Amber Hicks, a young married couple from Cobb County, Georgia.
September 5th, 2021. A momentous day in this young couple's life. They did something on this day that most young relationships can't do these days. Justin and Amber Hicks bought their dream home. And on this day, they moved into that home.
The home on Verbena Drive in Ackworth, Georgia, was Justin and Amber's dream home. But it wasn't clear if they knew about what the former homeowners of their dream home had gone through with the neighbor just months prior. The house had been previously owned by Philip Brent and his fiancée. According to court documents, just behind their home, beyond their backyard, lived the Lanz family. And Austin Lanz, who was 27 years old, had started a harassment campaign against the couple. Reports show that in April 2021, Austin was caught on video breaking into Philip and his fiance's home. This was after Austin had reportedly been leaving pornographic material in their mailbox. He was arrested, was granted bond a month later, and then court-ordered to undergo a mental health evaluation. But 4 months later, in August 2021, Austin got on a bus to Washington, D.C. According to the FBI, quote, Lanz stepped out of a bus at 10:40 a.m. on Tuesday at the Pentagon Transit Center and immediately, without provocation, attacked Officer George Gonzalez with a knife. During a struggle with Gonzalez, Lanz mortally wounded the officer and then shot himself with the officer's service weapon. The officers then engaged Lanz, who then died at the scene. The Lanz family released a statement saying, "We are devastated by the loss of our son Austin and of Officer George Gonzalez. We want Officer Gonzalez's family and friends to know that we are so sorry and heartbroken for them. We will forever be thankful for his service and dedication to the safety and well-being of our country." 1 month later, Philip and his fiancée moved out of their house behind the Lanz family home, and Justin and Amber Hicks moved in. Even if Justin and Amber had known about the harassment the former homeowners had faced from Austin Lanz, Austin was now deceased, so likely nothing for them to worry about there. But whether what happened next was at all related to what had happened with Austin and the former homeowners might forever remain a mystery.
But 73 days later, 73 short days in their achievement of this home, on November the 18th, 2021, a family's worst nightmare came true.
I want to confirm that you guys have called them on their phones and they didn't answer. We've tried calling multiple times now. My brother's phone rings a few times if we're going to voicemail. My sister-in-law's phone immediately goes to voicemail. According to my mother, they've been off social media for about 12 hours now.
The morning of November 18th shattered this family. November 18th, not only was this family shattered, but so was the back window of that house. And that is what they found.
This is Jillian in partnership with Law and Crime. You are listening to Court Junkie. In 2025, my health goals centered around working out and getting into shape through going to the gym and lifting weights. This year, in 2026, I am stepping up my nutrition. I'm keeping track of what I eat and trying to put healthy things into my body. One thing I've added to my daily routine is a post-workout Kachava smoothie. Kachava is an all-in-one nutrition shake crafted with the highest quality ingredients. No artificial flavors, colors, or sweeteners. Non-GMO, no soy, no animal products, no gluten, and no preservatives. It's a whole body meal with plant-based protein that actually tastes delicious. I was pretty sold on the chocolate flavor and then would add some ice, a banana, and on some days a tiny bit of peanut butter. Recently, I tried vanilla with that same combo and it's so yummy. It also helps give me a nice energy boost for the rest of my day. Just 2 scoops provide 25 grams of protein, 6 grams of fiber, greens, adaptogens, and so much more. And if chocolate and vanilla aren't really your thing, they also have other fun flavors like chai, matcha, coconut acai, and strawberry. Best of all, you can try Kachava risk-free with their Love It guarantee. Stick with your wellness goals. Go to kachava.com and use the code COURT for 15% off. That's Kachava, KACHAVA.com, code COURT. On the night of November 17th, 2021, Justin and Amber Hicks arrived home, just like any other night. They got their 2-year-old son Jacob ready for bed, put him down, and then cleaned up the house. After Jacob was upstairs and sleeping, Justin and Amber cuddled together on the couch to watch TV, the baby monitor to Amber's side.
They sat on this couch to watch TV, enjoy the night. But what the Hicks didn't know is that on this night, there was someone lurking on the outside of their home. They had just recently put up this Christmas tree. This Christmas tree was right next to the living room, connected. What they didn't know was that there was someone outside looking at this Christmas tree. And around 10 p.m. that night, this family's worst nightmare came true.
Around 10 p.m., the back window of their home was broken into.
The Hicks were unaware. They were defenseless. They were executed. All while Jacob was asleep upstairs.
Justin Hicks was 31 years old at the time of his death. He was a Cherokee County firefighter. Amber Hicks was also 31. She was an audiology assistant. Together, they had one son, Jacob. The 911 call for a welfare check came in at 9:34 a.m. the following morning. Amber Hicks hadn't shown up to work, and her loved ones knew how unusual that was. Officer Matthew Brown was one of the first officers to respond. When he arrived to the home, Justin and Amber's family members were in the driveway. He spoke with them, and after learning that there was a busted window at the back of the residence, he headed back there.
Now, when you got to the back door, what did you observe?
A window to the right of the back door. There were 2 back doors, one on each side of the house. On the right side of the house, there's a window to the right that was busted out.
Did you notice any glass?
A little bit of glass on the concrete. Most of the glass was inside it was like a sunroom on the floor.
Now, when you were outside of that window, could you really see into the house?
Initially, no, because there was a set of blinds blocking everything that were pulled down. We moved those. You still couldn't see inside them.
Could you hear anything from the interior of the house?
A dog barking loudly.
He said once they were able to move the blinds, he could then hear a child's voice. He cracked out the remaining shards of glass with his baton and made entry.
So once you were inside the home, kind of walk me through what you observed.
There's glass all over the floor. I looked up and I saw probably like a 2-year-old child peek around a corner. Seemed to be pretty scared. As I walked further into the living room, I saw Mr. and Mrs. Hicks deceased. I believe Mrs. Hicks was on the couch and Mr. Hicks was on the floor, kind of sitting up. He had a toy on his leg. First thing I wanted to do was go check on the child.
Now, when you said that you wanted to check on the child, kind of walk me through that.
Well, he looked very young. It being about almost 10 o'clock in the morning, I figured he'd been by himself for a while. I wanted to check on him. When I spoke to him, I could tell he was soaking wet and he had blood all over his pajamas. Diaper appeared pretty full. I mean, like he has not been changed since the night before.
He said they were able to get Jacob out and pass him over to his relatives who were outside. He then had to break the bad news to them about what he had found. Inside, the officers went room to room to make sure the killer wasn't there, hiding somewhere. They located 3 9mm casings and 2 projectiles. Justin and Amber had suffered 5 gunshot wounds each. Officer Brown testified that upstairs, everything was clean and appeared to be in order. The lead detective in the case was Detective Zachary Stannard with the Cobb County Police Department. He later told the judge that they had no leads at first. He went through Justin and Amber's phones. Justin had left the passwords in his home office. There was nothing of evidentiary value. He spoke to several family members. No one had any ideas of who would have wanted to hurt them. Meanwhile, they worked on getting DNA from the scene processed. The following morning, on November 19th, 2021, Detective Stannard received a call from police in Sandy Springs, Georgia.
As soon as I walked into the office, I was notified by a supervisor at Sandy Springs ambulance that contacted the office to let us know that they had just placed the individual in custody for entering 2 homes and stabbing a police officer.
Around 9 a.m. on November 19th, 2021, a call of a burglary in progress came into the Sandy Springs Police Department in Sandy Springs, Georgia. This was about 35 minutes away from where Justin and Amber's home was in Ackworth. Sergeant Jeffrey Inman arrived at 90 Cameron Glen Drive, the 3rd supervisor on scene. The homeowner was in the driveway at that time with another officer. Sergeant Inman walked into the house and began securing the main floor, while another sergeant, Sergeant Roush, was speaking with someone from the bottom of the stairs. Sergeant Inman testified that he then saw a man dressed in a military-style outfit, camouflage, gloves, a fishing hat, and a face covering, coming down the stairs.
Once he comes downstairs, then what happens?
At this point, I'm over towards the front door to the home. As the individuals come downstairs, Sergeant Roush had made a rapport with him, so they were talking and trying to convince him to come downstairs. I heard a commotion behind me, and I turned around, and the individual that was coming down the stairs was basically coming off of the 2nd or 3rd step with his arm raised, coming down at Sergeant Roush, and basically looked like he was in the process of trying to hit Sergeant Roush.
He said Sergeant Roush raised his arms to block it, and the 2 men started to struggle, going into the living room area.
They basically were kind of intertwined, and they started to roll. When they started to roll, I saw that it was a knife, a small katana knife looking. The individual was then stabbing Roush. I sit there and I yelled out, "Somebody shoot," as I'm drawing my weapon. I had a split second where I had a window. I fired one round, and Sergeant Petruska fired one round pretty much simultaneously. Sergeant Petruska hit the subject in the chest. I hit the subject in the neck, and the subject then stopped when he was doing and dropped the knife.
After the man dropped the knife, Sergeant Inman yelled for someone to handcuff him. After struggling with him, they were able to get the man in handcuffs. Sergeant Roush had been stabbed in the back of the neck multiple times. He was treated for his stab wounds, while the man was taken outside and was then treated for his wounds from having been shot twice. The man was taken to the hospital before being transported to the police station so officers could interview him and figure out who he was and why he had broken in. During the interview, they learned the man's name was Matthew Lanz. He was a UGA student who was studying cognitive science. He lived in Athens for school and also at his parents' house in Ackworth, Georgia. Matthew told the police that his mother had come over that afternoon prior to tell him that 2 people had been murdered in the house behind theirs in Ackworth. As for why he was at the house at 90 Cameron Glen Drive, he said his car had run out of gas earlier that day and that he left the car and walked through the neighborhood near the highway. He had entered a home and a woman there asked who he was. He said he told her, "It's me, Matthew." As the woman called police, he went upstairs to check something out. After the police arrived, he conceded stabbing the officer with a knife he had on his hip. He said, "I don't think what I did was worth it." Once the Sandy Spring officers learned who Matthew Lanz was and where he lived, they called the police in Cobb County. Perhaps this man was a viable suspect in the double homicide of Justin and Amber Hicks, who lived right behind the Lanz family home. I always tell myself I'm going to get better at meal planning. I'm going to get better at meal planning. But then, before I know it, the weekend is over and the crazy busy week is about to begin. And once again, I missed my chance. But what finally clicked for me is that some nights I have more time than others. Some nights I can actually cook a meal. But other nights, I just need something to heat up or we just need dinner fast. Those nights are mainly when my daughter has soccer or Girl Scouts or ice skating. And that's why Marley Spoon works really well for us. They actually adapt with you and have options for all of it so that meals fit your schedule and not the other way around. And it still helps us eat well. Everything is chef-designed, made with quality ingredients, and balanced enough to feel good about. Marley Spoon has a wide range of ready-to-cook, prepared meals, and ready-to-eat options, as well as market items to help you stock up on snacks and beverages for the between-meal moments. And Marley Spoon understands that we all eat differently. Your tastes, preferences, and interests, culinary or dietary, are always covered. Their meal selection is always evolving with fresh updates, offering something for everyone and letting you personalize every order. One of our recent Marley Spoon meals was creamy chicken sausage and mushroom ravioli. This one was definitely daughter approved. She's been on a big pasta kick lately, and she gave this one 2 thumbs up. What I love about Marley Spoon is how ridiculously easy it is and how no matter which type of meal you choose, it tastes like you just made everything from scratch. So if you too are hungry now after hearing all of this, head on over to marleyspoon.com/offer/court in all caps for 45% off your first order and free delivery. That's right, 45% off your first order and free delivery. That's marleyspoon.com/offer/COURT. Court Junkie is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, Monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Because Progressive offers discounts for paying in full, owning a home, and more. Plus, you can count on their great customer service to help you when you need it, so your dollar goes a long way. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save on car insurance. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states or situations. Cobb County Detective Zachary Stannard went to the Sandy Springs Police Department to interview Matthew Lanz. By that time, they had a suspect vehicle that was seen on surveillance video, arriving and leaving the area of the murders. Matthew Lanz's car had been recovered by Sandy Springs police, and the vehicle certainly looked like a match. Matthew agreed to speak to him without counsel present. Detective Stannard would later recall in court that Matthew spoke clearly with him and seemed to understand where he was and why he was there. In the interview, Matthew was asked if his gun would match one from a murder scene, and Matthew said, probably not.
Detective Stannard, ultimately, did this defendant confess to these killings?
No, he did not.
Where did he put himself on the evening of November 17th of 2021?
In the backyard of his home at 600 Delphinium Boulevard.
Which is how close to 50-50 Verbena Drive?
They back up to each other.
Now, with respect to the timeline he provided, how did the arrival that he said at 10:30 p.m. align to the video surveillance evidence?
About 19 minutes difference from when we observed his Lexus leaving the area.
Well, in terms of arrival, how did his stated time of arrival of 10:30 p.m. compared to the arrival as shown on surveillance video?
That would have been close to an hour. I think it would have been about a 50-minute difference.
And then how did his departure time that he says was 11:15 p.m. compare to the departure time as seen on the surveillance video?
It would have been about an hour and 4 minutes difference.
There were other things, Matthew said, that piqued his interest.
Well, first, he put himself in the area, not just in the area, but in his backyard where that backed up to the Lanz, or to the Hicks property. The statement itself it was hard to follow. He claimed he drove all the way from Athens to come visit his parents, smoked a cigarette in the backyard, and then took a nap in his car for 10 to 15 minutes, got a bad feeling, and then drove all the way home. I just thought that was an unusual thing to do, as far as that statement goes. So yeah, I didn't quite believe that to be genuine.
What about the statements regarding a North Face jacket?
So at the time, we had reviewed a lot of video surveillance. Granted, the surveillance was difficult to see. When I reviewed it on my computer, kind of frame by frame, a particular moment when we see an individual walking from the backyard area of the Hicks' residence up the street towards Delphinium Boulevard. It was, in my opinion, that the subject seen in that video, their top clothing was a lighter color than their bottom clothing. And I just, at that time, suspected it may have been a lighter color or gray. So that was when we confronted him about a gray hoodie, because during the Sandy Springs incident, when he was shot, the paramedics or responding officers had actually cut off a gray jacket, zip-up jacket off this person.
But what was it, I guess, about his response that was noteworthy to you?
So when we confronted him with that belief that, hey, you were wearing a gray hoodie today, and we believe you were wearing a gray hoodie on that video camera, he made a response and said, no, that was my North Face hoodie.
What about the number of times that lights were mentioned?
The number of times?
I'm not asking you to testify to how many times, but what about the volume of times?
He mentioned seeing a flickering light while he was in the backyard smoking a cigarette several times. I believe at one time described him as possibly demonic. I think maybe the word he used.
I'm sorry.
I think he described him as demonic at one point.
Was it clear based on the interview whether these demonic lights is what led him to have this bad feeling and drive almost 2 hours back to Athens?
Specifically lights, I just recall him saying he had a bad, eerie feeling, took him out and then drove home.
When talking about what happened at the neighbor's house, Matthew became visibly distressed when told that a toddler was in the house when the parents were killed. At one point, he referenced his brother Austin being harassed through the neighbor's window at some point before his death. At the time of the interview, there was some speculation among the officers that Amber Hicks may have been pregnant at the time of the murders. Detective Stannard later learned that wasn't true, but he mentioned that to Matthew. After the interview concluded, when Matthew said he didn't want to talk anymore with Sandy Springs detectives, he was transferred to the Fulton County Jail. During the transport, Matthew was talkative.
Bruh, did you see how close that neck shot was to brainsteming me? Bro, that shit probably should have just happened, on God. I'm just saying, bro, like, even though I know in my heart that justified observation, I still feel pain for knowing that there was a child or whatever in that lady's belly. Huh? I still feel terrible about knowing that there was a baby in that woman's body. Bro, is that true? Was she pregnant with twins? I'm just saying, dude, like, was the lady pregnant? I don't know. Probably not. Maybe.
Detective Peter Dwyer from the Sandy Springs Police Department was with Matthew during that transport. He testified that he had no knowledge of any murders at that point and didn't know what Matthew was referring to. He knew Cobb County investigators had been at their department interviewing Matthew, but he didn't know why.
During any point in time from the time that you spent with Mr. Lanz at the hospital, the time you spent with him transporting him to headquarters, getting him into Donaldson's vehicle at headquarters, getting him out of the vehicle at the Fulton County Jail, during any of that time period, did you have concerns that he was under the influence, drunk or high, any indicators such as that?
I didn't have any concerns he was under the influence at that point. I mean, I assumed at the hospital he gave some type of pain medication, but he didn't seem under the influence to me.
Did you notice any sort of inability to walk or stand or falling asleep unexpectedly or anything along those lines?
No, I mean, he had followed instructions. He stood up. I mean, he walked into the jail on his own power. I mean, he didn't stumble. I saw no issue there.
Matthew Lanz's parents were also interviewed by police. They were told about the break-in at the home in Sandy Springs and how Matthew had stabbed a police officer. His mother put a hand over her mouth as they listened, and his father buried his head in his hands. They were told the police officer was going to survive and that Matthew was okay after being shot by officers. The detectives also told them that Matthew was a suspect in the Hickses' murders. "It's Matthew?" his mom exclaimed. "I can't believe it. I'm sick," she said. In December 2025, the murder trial for Matthew Lanz began. Instead of a jury, he opted for a bench trial, meaning the judge would be deciding guilt or innocence. In his opening statements, the prosecutor told the judge that Matthew was 22 at the time of the killings, a student at the University of Georgia. He had 2 sisters and an older brother, Austin, who is now deceased. He grew up in a large home on Delphinium Boulevard, which was right behind the Hicks home.
It's important for the court to know that the backs of these houses are actually facing each other. So if you would walk out the back door of the Hicks residence, you would be looking at the back door of the defendant's residence.
While at UGA, Matthew had his own apartment on North Church Street. He drove a 2008 black Lexus. Prosecutor Horowitz told the jury they would see surveillance video, hear about ballistics evidence from the scene, and hear about Matthew's own words implicating himself in the murders. Sergeant Mark Gaskew testified for the prosecution about what he saw at the scene as photos were shown in court.
State's Exhibit 221.
Now we're looking at Justin and Amber Hicks, deceased, in the living room. If you look directly behind them is the illuminated Christmas tree, and just to the right of that would be the window, the broken window.
And so from where Amber is there on the couch, without moving, would she have been able to see the window?
It does not appear so, no.
It's Exhibit 223.
It's another angle of Justin.
And what is it that was on Justin's lap there?
It's a child's toy airplane.
Was that like a paper airplane or an actual like plastic?
No, that's a plastic acrylic child's airplane that obviously had been placed there after Justin had fallen.
And why is it that it would have been placed there after Justin had fallen?
I don't see a way it could have stayed where it is if he'd have been standing up. It was not attached to him.
He described finding Amber as the photo of Amber's body was shown.
States 244. Can you describe kind of the positioning of her body here?
She's lying, her body's on the couch, her feet and her legs are on a movable ottoman. She's partially covered by the blanket there. And obviously you can see her arms down by her side.
And what is this orange object that we can see by her legs?
It's a small ball, a child's toy. And then we also have the monster truck on the other side of her leg.
States 252. Is that kind of zooming in on her glasses?
It is, yeah. They were obviously not sitting naturally on her face how she would be wearing them. It appeared they'd either been pulled down from her face or had fallen from her face.
When you say pulled down, like from Jacob? Or?
Yes, from Jacob, that was my assumption. With the amount of toys that was on her, that was my assumption.
He said there were numerous items that 2-year-old Jacob likely moved, including Justin's phone. Based on where Justin's body was, he was able to theorize where he was when he was shot.
He came to arrest here. Can you get kind of a trajectory that would have continued on in this direction?
Yes, I believe he was standing where his feet were, and his body was turned to look over his right shoulder toward that broken window. I believe that it's possible that round could have entered through his right side, out his left in a downward trajectory, and struck the baseboard.
He said Jacob was covered in blood when he first saw him. He had no injuries. When he searched the external part of the home, he was unable to find anything of evidentiary value. On cross, he agreed that 2 shell casings were missing from the scene. Detective Ronson Smith testified about video surveillance they retrieved from the Hicks home and surrounding areas. He told the court that at 7:06 p.m., Amber, Justin, and Jacob arrived home for the night. That is the last time they were ever seen on surveillance. At 9:20 p.m., a suspect vehicle can be seen driving down the street towards the direction of the Lanz home. Detective Smith said after seeing the suspect vehicle on video, he analyzed the headlight pattern and confirmed it was similar to Matthew Lanz's car. At 9:31 to 9:32 p.m., surveillance shows a shadowy figure, presumed to be Matthew, walking around the rear and side of the Hicks residence. At 9:32 p.m., he can be seen walking back towards his residence. Between 9:43 and 9:44, Matthew can be seen again walking around the Hicks property. At 9:55, an exterior-mounted motion sensor light connected to the Hicks house turns on. The lights turn off at 9:59. 15 minutes later, at 10:10, the lights come back on and Matthew leaves the property. At 10:11, a neighbor's camera catches his car as it drives down the street. He then drives all the way back to his apartment in Athens, something he admitted to doing in his interview with police. Detective Smith also told the court that Matthew's phone was in airplane mode from 10:16 p.m. to 12:43 a.m. He estimated that the murders occurred between approximately 9:55 and 10:10. Cobb County Sergeant Ben Jackson helped facilitate the interview with Matthew's parents, Teresa and Scott Lanz. He testified that they told police that Matthew had been seeing a psychiatrist for bipolar and schizophrenic issues. They also said Matthew had purchased a gun in October 2021, just 1 month before the murders. They said they confiscated it and locked it in a safe. On November 18th, about an hour after the murders were discovered, they went to check on Matthew at his Athens apartment because he wasn't answering their calls. His mom arrived first and banged on the door. His dad, who had been in Washington, D.C., went to the apartment straight from the airport. When his mom got there around 2 p.m., Matthew was sleeping with a gun next to his bed. Matthew told her he needed that gun for protection and that they were out to get him. Matthew's parents said he was talking about devil worshippers and demonic lights. He also referenced his brother Austin and said the neighbors had been messing with him. Matthew's parents took the gun back to their house, and it was later retrieved by police. That gun was later found to have matched the casings from the murder scene. When Detective Stannard took the stand, one of the things he testified about was the Cellbrite extraction they did on Matthew's cell phone. It showed that on November 16, 2021, the day before the murders, there were some Google searches made on the phone.
State's Exhibit 917 here. Let's see, what sort of Google search did you see on November 16th of 2021?
Searching facts about blood. That was a Johns Hopkins website.
And what other search was looked at on November 16th of 2021?
Catholicism and the Ten Commandments for Dummies.
Was there a reference to the Ten Commandments during your interview with Mr. Lanz?
Yes, that was a reference made by Detective Jackson during the interview.
Looking at October 9th here, what sort of searches were seen on October 9th?
It's the 29th, I think. Really.
I'm sorry, 29th.
Ballistic calculators for long-range shooting.
Looking next at, I guess, earlier in the day or evening or early morning hours of October 29th of 2021, what other search do you see?
What would getting shot by 308 be like?
And
do heads really explode as portrayed in Pulp Fiction?
On October 20th, 2021, there was another Google search for a combat pistol, the same gun Matthew had just purchased. 3 days prior to that, he searched for 22 mag velocity. Detective Stannard was asked if he ever found a link between Matthew Lanz and Justin and Amber Hicks.
Not personally, only to the residents.
And when you say the link to the residents, was that really with Matthew Lanz or his brother?
His brother.
When the defense gave their opening statements, Matthew's attorney spoke only for a little over a minute. He told the judge that this is a very emotional and difficult case. He said Matthew believes he has been set up, either by the FBI, CIA, or another government agency. Matthew Lanz's defense team didn't present any witnesses. When asked by the judge if he wanted to testify, Matthew responded, no comment. He continued to say that after every question the judge asked.
Do you understand that if you do not testify, then upon your request, the court will not use your decision against you?
No comment.
Do you understand that if you choose to testify, you will be examined by your counsel and cross-examined by the assistant district attorney?
No comment.
Do you personally want to testify or not?
No comment.
In his closing arguments, Matthew's attorney told the judge that he has some concerns about the evidence the prosecution presented. He said when Matthew's parents went to check on him after the murders, it was because they were concerned about his safety, not because they believed he had done anything wrong. He then told the judge about issues he had with the crime scene. He brought up how, when the first officer arrived, he had to use his baton to cut out more of the window so he could get inside. He pointed out that Matthew was larger and wouldn't have been able to fit through the glass as it was without getting cut. He said when the officers got inside, they collected 3 shell casings but didn't find any footprints, fingerprints, or any other type of trace evidence. He agreed that there were shell casings missing from the home, but said there was no evidence that Matthew took any. He pointed out that Jacob could have flushed them down the toilet. He said someone could have gone into the house earlier in the day and then lay in wait for Amber and Justin to come home. He pointed to floodlights that went on that night in the Hickses' backyard, but they only went on once and didn't go on again after the alleged killer had left. He said video surveillance from a neighbor showed Matthew's car passing by at 10:11 p.m. He said the shadowy figure on surveillance was seen going into the Hicks home at 10:08, and that Matthew couldn't have accomplished that in that time frame. He told the judge there were no glass shards found on Matthew's clothing from that night, nor in his vehicle, even though the killer had gone through the broken window. He brought up how Matthew had put his phone on airplane mode later that night, after the murders. Why wouldn't he have done that before? It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, he said. In her closing arguments, the prosecutor walked the judge through the timeline again, pointing out that it perfectly fits with Matthew's movements that night. She said Matthew's parents started calling him shortly after police had arrived at the scene, because they knew.
And they're immediately calling their son because they know he did it before any details or any facts had been released to the public. That is their first thought. The neighbors are done, our son must have done it. They knew what happened in this case before any law enforcement ever knew they existed. Teresa Lanz is so concerned that she drives all the way to Athens to lay eyes on her son and confront him about these murders. Keep in mind, it takes almost 2 hours to get to Athens. That first phone call that they make to him is 11:24 a.m. And within 30 to 45 minutes of that first call, Teresa's already getting in her car. Whatever she had planned for the day, whatever she had going on was not as important as laying eyes on her child because she knew as a mother, having motherly instinct, that her son committed these murders. She arrives in Athens at 2:14 p.m. We know this because she tells law enforcement she calls when she gets there. She's banging on the door so hard that this defendant thinks that she might actually break the lock off the door or the chain off the door because she's that upset and that concerned. Teresa goes in the home and she finds the murder weapon. Now, of course, she doesn't know that's the murder weapon initially, but she sees the gun. She sees it by his bedside table on the floor. She described that there was 2 magazines. She said one was in it, well, not really all the way, but it was hanging out of it, and the other one was next to it. That is how the gun was initially found. Next to his bedside table with 2 magazines, one of which was in the gun. And we know from the evidence in this case that the one in the gun would have been the one with only 12 bullets in it. Ultimately, even though the defendant doesn't want to relinquish his firearm to his family, he does, once his dad gets there. His dad, that had been in D.C., and traveled all the way home and got picked up by his daughter and drove straight from the airport all the way to Athens to be a part of this conversation.
She told the judge how Matthew's car was found the following morning, abandoned just off the highway in Sandy Springs. She said when it was found, it barely had any gas left in it.
So was this where he was planning to go? We don't know. Or was it that he was taking 285 from 316 to 85 to 285 to 75 to get back to his residence? Or maybe go look at what's going on at the Hicks' residence. We don't know. But certainly this is on the way back towards Ackworth. But he ran out of gas. So he leaves his car, he cuts through the woods, and he ends up in someone else's home at 90 Cameron Glen Drive in Sandy Springs. And that's when the dispatch call was made for Sandy Springs officers to respond, around 8:45 in the morning. By 6 p.m., with the assistance of Sandy Springs, the dominoes then fall into place. The pieces are then put together. And that is when everyone learns that Matthew Lanz was responsible for these two murders.
Matthew Lanz was found guilty of the murders and was given 2 life-in-prison sentences without the possibility of parole. And that's all for this episode. If you'd like to check out these episodes without the ads or hear additional Court Junkie bonus episodes, go to courtjunkie.com/support. Thanks again for listening. Until next time.
Pluto TV has thousands of free movies and TV shows.
I swear.
If I'm lying, I'm dying.
This is the mindset.
Free.
This is the mantra.
Free.
This is the mindset.
With movies like Interstellar, Dreamgirls, and Gladiator.
Are you not entertained?
And TV shows like Survivor, SpongeBob SquarePants, The Fairly Odd Parents, and Ghosts. Pluto TV is always free. Huzzah! Pluto TV. Stream now. Pay never.